Welcome back to Max's Muscle TV. Now, regulars of Muscle TV will know that Extreme Chef Peter Wright isn't, shall we say, quite as strict on his nutritional choices as Muscle Up coach Fred Liberatore. Now, the boys like to have some fun, but Pete isn't usually allowed to flex his culinary muscles too much. Well, that might just change tonight when the boys look at some off-season options. Perfect for those of you looking to build some size. Over to you, Freddie.
Well, thanks, Tony. I'm here again with Extreme Chef Peter Wright. Welcome back, Pete.
How you going there, Fred?
Fantastic. Pete, today we're going to talk about bodybuilding in the off-season.
In the off-season? So what do you mean, what, you guys have an off-season?
Yeah, we do. Bodybuilding in the off-season is all about putting on as much muscle mass and size as you possibly can.
So Fred, what sort of food are we having in the off-season? Is it like beer and barbecues?
No, not, it used to be maybe in the old days where you could have pizzas and burgers. But what we want to do is we want to add a lot more kilojoules to your frame. So plenty of good carbs and high quality protein.
So Fred, I see we've got a few interesting meals here for the off-season.
Yeah, we have, Peter. And as you can see, this may look like a lot, but if your goal's to add muscle to your frame, this is actually what you need to do, Peter. And here we've got Max's Super Size. It's called Super Size for a reason, because it's got lots of carbs, lots of great WPC protein, helps you grow and adds muscle mass to your frame. And you would actually have this in milk for about 54 grams of protein per serve. So it gives you a great hit of protein, Pete.
And great chocolate flavour.
Well, we've got different flavours. They've got cookies and cream, banana, chocolate. There's a whole variety of different flavours.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, we've had some great feedback on the Max's Super Size for people wanting to put on muscle mass as well.
So Fred, what sort of person would be using this sort of protein?
Someone that's relatively a beginner to an intermediate. Someone like yourself,
someone
Peter.
Lean and mean?
Someone that hasn't had many years of training experience and want to get on the right pathway to training and adding muscle mass to their frame.
So Fred, we've whipped up a couple of meals here. Now I'll start off with this picnic sandwich. We've got a nice wholesome sandwich and some fresh fruits.
You'd actually have up to 2 to 3 serves of that per day because you're going to be training really heavy. So the idea is to have as many kilojoules as you possibly can. So you're fueling your body as well. And something like this sandwich is a great source of protein, your carbs and your fats also.
The next one we'll talk a little bit about, I've made some tuna and vegetable patties. So I make a mix with some mashed potato, tinned tuna and some vegetables through that and just form them into patties and just fry them a little bit in the fry pan. With these I've just used plain white potatoes, but you could use sweet potatoes and you can add whatever vegetables you like. I've got corn and carrot and all things that go nicely together, so there's a little bit of crunch in there. Serving that with a great big serve of broccoli and some mixed lettuces.
That looks great, and you could also add Brussels sprouts, beans, get creative with it, add as many as you can to your plate, and that'll be great for recovery as well. Okay, Pete, and I noticed here you've got stir fry with chicken.
A big serve of stir-fried vegetables, huge amount there, probably feed a small family.
Well, it wouldn't, Pete, because as I said, we're talking about building up. So if you're serious, this is what you've got to have. If you want to pack on muscle, this is the style of eating you've got to actually undertake. Now, that might seem like a real lot of food, but if you're training really heavy, and you want to replenish your energy reserves, that will do it.
So I guess you'd be pretty hungry then.
You would, and you have no problems finishing that off. As long as you're training hard, as I said, the idea is to increase as many kilojoules as you can.
And finally, my favourite, Auntie Marie spaghetti bolognese. Again, a huge amount of pasta. I've used penne pasta there, so it's just boiled up in water till it becomes soft, about 8 to 10 minutes. And a nice bolognese sauce. And in this bolognese sauce is basically mince, crushed tomatoes, a little bit of tomato paste and a bit of seasoning. A great dish also to make a lot of and take it away with you again the next day.
That's fantastic, Pete. Well, there you have it. Bodybuilding in the off season. So if you're serious about putting on muscle and training hard and increasing your calories, this is the sort of stuff you have to do. And speaking of serious trainers, Pete, we spoke to the Max's athletes and found out what they did in the off season.
During the off season, I'm having my 6 square meals per day.
Off-season diet compared to pre-contest is pretty much the same.
The foods that I eat in the off-season are not that different from when I do pre-contest.
What I eat doesn't tend to change.
I mean, you always want to go for good quality stuff.
But generally in larger amounts in the off-season.
So training really heavy, really hard, but still meeting the protein requirements and having a little bit extra carbohydrate than you normally would.
With my off-season diet, it's a lot more carbohydrates.
My carbs will go up a little bit.
That's the formula now.
I'll just have those extra carb meals.
Definitely keep my carbohydrates up high.
More brown rice.
I love my pasta, grew up on pasta.
From a white rice perspective, basmati is obviously the best.
And each meal I am getting a good source of carbohydrate and protein.
Protein up high.
It's also important as well that I have my greens, whether it's broccoli or asparagus or cabbage or spinach, just for the nutrient value and the antioxidants.
Just eat as much as I can, but try and keep protein up, carbohydrates up, and your good fats as well.
So it's larger, bigger meals to slow my metabolism down when I'm in my off-season, and when I'm dieting for a competition, it's smaller meals more frequently every 3 hours.
There's some really good information there, Pete. Now, the really important thing is when you're bodybuilding in the off-season, it's not like the old days where you could eat anything you want. You've got to pay attention to the quality of foods and the quantity of food. So you need a good, rich source of carbohydrates, fats and proteins.
So a good balanced diet, still eating clean.
Still eating clean, getting a little bit creative, and some nice warm winter type foods are really good as well. So Pete, you can weave your magic here today.
Okay, so what I'm going to make for you today, Fred, is Auntie Rosie's shepherd's pies, which is one of my favourites. So it's basically made out of good quality premium mince and sweet potatoes as the topping. But to get it going, we just put a little bit of a splash of oil.
Now Pete,
Olive
we've
oil.
chosen sweet potato as opposed to normal potato. Again, low GI food, really good for you and much better than white potato in my opinion.
Yeah, the great thing about shepherd's pie is it's a comfort food, but all good quality ingredients, all very simple, nothing complicated. So 1, 2, 3 vegetables, mincemeat, and a couple of seasonings.
So anyone could do it?
Anyone can do it, and that's why we're doing it. So you can make a really big one. We're just going to make a small one to show you how to do it.
Put them in containers and put them in the fridge, Pete.
Don't get the oil too hot. So what we're doing, we don't want to actually get any colour on our veggies. So basically, a chopped up onion. You're going to throw in those carrots for me, Fred?
Yep.
I just want to cook them with chuck that in, mate.
Just put it in.
Yep.
Okay.
Bit of carrot. Okay, so Fred, we just mix that through. You can see now the onions are getting a little bit translucent or a little bit clear. And that's what we're trying to do, is cook with our colour and just sweat that off a bit in the oil.
Yep.
And then celery, please.
Just put it on?
Yeah, chuck it in, yep. These are what we call the root vegetables. So they're the base of all cooking stocks. You get very aromatic flavours out of them, but you can put any vegetables you like in. You know, you can put zucchinis, broccoli, whatever you want. You know,
just be a bit creative with it.
Be as creative as you want. You could put mushrooms in it. If you didn't want to use mince, you could just make it with mushrooms instead of mince, and exactly the same way.
Well, we're choosing mince in this case, Pete, because we're after a high protein diet as well. So we want some really good quality proteins there as well.
So you can sort of hear that sound of that little bit of sizzle when I put it in.
Now, Pete, when you choose a mince, what are you actually looking for? Is it a low-fat mince, or what's the situation with minces out there in the marketplace?
There's just about any mince you like. Chicken mince, pork mince, veal mince. I know one of your favourites, kangaroo mince, which is very, very lean.
Yes.
That's 97% fat-free.
That is.
It's all about flavour profile. For something like this, where we're going to encapsulate everything into the dish, we want a relatively low fat. So I'd be going for a premium to Heart Smart. If you're in the supermarket, it's clearly labelled. If you're going to your butcher, ask for a very, very lean. And a term that the butchers use is CL. So you say, I'll have a 95 CL, which is 5% fat or less. Now, the next ingredient that goes in, most important, is tomato paste. Now, the tomato paste is a reduced tomato, so it's got a little bit of starch in it. And what we want is quite a good dollop of that, a couple of tablespoons. And that's just going to bind everything together. So Fred, now is going to let that cook for 4 or 5 minutes. I'm going to add my stock.
So if you really want to be clean, just add a bit of water to it as well, that'd be fine.
The other thing also, Fred, is if you're going to add salt and pepper, if the stock has a little bit of salt in it, just don't add the other salt to it, so it'll season it up nicely.
Yep. So how long would you cook that for, Pete?
For about 20 minutes. So this is the longest process. So you can put it onto a low, just like a rolling boil or a simmer. Every now and then, just give it a stir.
Yep.
You know, go off and do something else.
Pose in the mirror, just tense your muscles up.
You know, a few flexes, whatever.
Yeah. We are off season, so we really want to get massive here.
What I'm going to do now is I'll let that cool down a bit, And when it's cooled down, I'll pour it into a serving dish. I'll top it with my mashed potato. Now I've prepared one just to show the viewers. I know it's a little bit chefy, but I've liked my sweet potato. Now, for me, that would feed a small family. For you, it's probably a snack.
Well, that's probably one meal I could just finish off. That looks delicious and really well prepared. So it does take a little bit of preparation, but as you can see, the end result's all worthwhile. Well, thanks, Pete. That looks delicious. Building up in the off season, as you can see, it's all about quantities. So you can add more as you go along. You want to feed your body good, clean carbs, good amounts of protein, Pete, and that looks delicious.
And something great to eat.
It is. So there you go. Another great recipe, Pete, that you've done. So if you are building up in the off season, give this a go and we'll see you next time.